the last thing we shot, and the last thing that Jesse writes to Daisy, says, "I love you, I love you, I love you forever." You know, and that's the difference. I think that's the difference for our picture, is that it's not "I love you, baby." It's like "I love you forever." That's the responsibility to go, to take it there, and to live there for however long we, I guess even to now.
For you, this is not only just a feat to pull off as a filmmaker, but also a personal story. Jesse Brown, of course, as our first Black naval aviator. Your father, also the second Black Blue Angel. What did it mean to have, one, your father ended up becoming an aviation consultant on this one. What was it like to pay tribute to essentially both men simultaneously with this movie?
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of the magic trick emotionally of this film for me, you know, in being introduced to Jesse's story, you know, not just seeing obviously what he went through, but then being able to see so many things my dad had told me in his life, and how those things kind of lived with each other. As far as like having your dad on set for north of 40 days, it's a little intense. There's a really kind of awesome experiencing being able to run over to him and be like, okay, so the guys are doing this, but they're talking about this. And it wasn't just like the aviation logistics. There were also times where I could go over to him and be like, so what was it like telling mom, you know, that you're leaving home? And so I think it was nice to sort of, you know, have that point of reference.
Let's talk to the Browns in that sense, because it is a story about friendship. It is also a story about family and what it's like to be a military family. We get to see that home life, those conversations. What kind of conversations did y'all two have and have with JD about what that was going to look like?
From the beginning, my first conversation with JD, he told me how important Daisy was to the story, but also to him and Jesse. My first conversation with Jonathan, he used the word sanctuary. Daisy is sanctuary. That let me know how important she was to him. When I meet Jesse via his last letter to her, he let me know how important she was to him. And so I had these three men guiding me to get to those places to kind of understand in a way, because I don't come from a military background. I don't have any of that. So I had to find these spaces and these ways to have these kind of conversations, knowing what's going to happen already and get there authentically.
It's good to know the men you're flying with. See what they're fighting for.
What are you fighting for?
Hoping to find that out.
Try to keep up.
A huge key to who Jesse was and is that devotion to his wife, and is that idea of sanctuary. And our relationship, you know, what happens, the intimacy that we have, the man that Jesse is in the world, he gets filled up by her. All these elements got to enliven Jesse and the character development process. One of the things I think is important about the film is that, you know, when it takes place, you know, these people, which is why it's so beautiful when they bond and essentially fall in love with each other, is that we are at a point in America where America's completely torn apart. There's black, there's white, there's Navy and Marines. I mean, there's so many separations. But the thing that connected us was when we got home, we were home, you know? And in that essence, that feeling, we carried on, you know, when we were on the ship, you know.
Out there on the ship, being in Savannah, filming this, you know, what was it that bonded you all together and allowed you to play the actual brotherhood that happens?
Responsibility. We had a responsibility. We have a responsibility to a story that is guided by, I mean, if you read the letters that Jesse wrote to his wife, you understand the level of responsibility that you have in telling the story of a beautiful man and a beautiful love. And when you then expand it into this moment between these two men and this extraordinary sacrifice. But not only just that moment, you then expanded even further into this group of warriors who fought together and loved each other in a time when that was a highly radical, highly transgressive act. We had an incredible responsibility.
Can't tell you how many times people have told me to give up, quit, die even. That's why you can't always do what you're told.
Joe, you upped the ante for this one too, because you also you showed off both sides of your skill set, acting and of course as a performer, writing this beautiful song. What was it about this movie that inspired those words for Not Alone?
Ooh, it's a loaded question. Thank you. It started with a conversation with JD, and he asked if I would take a stab at writing the song, which is a lot to think about. So the relationship between these two on camera and that mentality of being there for somebody forever, that line really stuck with me. And trying to find a marriage between how I think a lot of these military families and Navy families feel when they're away from their partners. That we can all feel, I think, is the smallest scale of performers. Yeah. When we travel, we're away from the people we love constantly. In some spiritual sense, being there for somebody, even if you're not physically there, and what that's like for those who we either can't be with, and no spoilers, but if you can't be with that person physically, like what would that be like? So that became Not Alone.
Glenn, for you, in creating Tom and honoring him and his family and the way that he bonded with Jesse through it all, what was key for you?
I think casting was key. Getting Jonathan Majors as you know, I mean, I've been thinking about this movie for 6 years. I've never had anything so close to my heart before. I made promises to families to do this right. And I remember when I first sat down with Jonathan, he insisted I meet him at a Russian bathhouse in New York.
Like, what?
And I pitched him the entire movie in the hottest sauna in this bathhouse. As my brain was cooking and failing, I got him to sign on this movie. Yeah, but no, I mean, I gotta say the beauty of this movie is that everybody has to come together for this thing to be what it is. And I'm so proud of this movie. I'm so proud of what we made together, because it's a rare thing.
And this amount of like technical genius as well. I mean, you guys, you're really showing how this worked and looked and how these planes flew. JD, kind of quickly tell us how you pulled it off. Yeah,
I mean, it's funny. The attention to detail exists both emotionally and technically, and in this really weird way, they don't work without each other. And I think in the way that, even when I first met Glenn, and he had already been with the book, and we just talked blue sky, no pun, like what this thing could look like, and I think we knew that we had to tell like a drama, like that was at its core, a story of mutual understanding, a story of devotion, but one way to dial that up, if the drama on the ground is working, the drama in the sky is only intensified, and then when the drama in the sky is really intense, you need that release back on the ground when everybody's able to connect. The beautiful thing about the movie to me is that it was all part of the same brushstroke, so it didn't really feel like switching hats. It was just making sure that we were always telling it as well as we could.
You shouldn't even be flying.
Jonathan, we talked a lot about the emotion and the bond of finding the supporters of Jesse, but in a lot of this, Jesse is alone. What was it like for you to explore that?
A lot of walking through Savannah with your headphones on. The story of Jesse Brown is it tells a secret, and it tells a secret that we all, I think everybody in this room, everybody up here, we can relate to that moment when you feel like you can't do it. You feel like you can't do it, but you can. I'm not fighting wars as our brother Jesse did, but I'm fighting wars in my own way, you know. And then you just allowing the demons and the angels to speak, the things that hurt you the most, or the things that make you strong. And Jesse, in his isolation and in his solitude, understood that, and that's what he offers to everybody. I think in the film that you are not alone. You know what I mean? You have all these experiences in your life that have pushed you and pressed you, and all that tells you is that that's the amount of weight you got to lift on the day. You know what I mean? And if you can lift that weight, you'll develop this character, you'll develop these muscles, you'll develop this devotion, right, to move forward and to be stronger. And Jesse got very hip to that, and he shows that in the story, I think, in a very beautiful and human way.